Welcome on in, everyone, to another episode here of Dbacks Dispatch with your hosts, Brett, Brandon, and Gabe. Again, if this is your guys' first time here stopping by Dbacks Dispatch, we really appreciate it. Thank you very much for spending some of your time out of your busy life, because I know we all got some busy lives. But make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. It really does help out. Rate us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, wherever you do listen to the podcast. And also make sure you check out not only our Discord, which is in the description below. Make sure you guys also check out Arizona's or AZ Snake Pit. Get a bunch of articles on, like I said, it's off season, so it's not going to be as popping, but they did a little bit of work in the off season, so some of the specific articles will be easier to find. So make sure you guys go check it over there. There's a lot of great writers. But we did finish the last episode on Sunday, right when the winter meeting started, kind of hoping that the Dbacks, we'd have a little bit of news, Dbacks related, whether it's Christian Walker re-signing or even going after a guy like Cody Bellinger, maybe making a trade, trying to hit the Cubs back up for, Cody Bellinger and Jordan Montgomery. A little more on that later. But unfortunately, they didn't do anything. And as the great Gene Wilder said in the Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory, you get nothing, you lose. And that's basically exactly what happened. The Snakes didn't do much other than signing Jeff Brigham. I believe I'm pronouncing his name properly. But he was the only, at least, transaction to happen over the time. They signed him to a minor league deal. He had a 4.10 win-loss record with a 4.76 ERA and a 1.338 WHIP over 117 career innings pitched. So not really too much. He hasn't really pitched in the majors since 2023. So maybe this is just kind of a buy low. If they can get something good out of him, cool. If not, he's just, bolstering the Reno roster. Mike Hazen did discuss a little bit, obviously, at the winter meetings and also on the season ticket holder Q&A. I tried to get some of the recording to get some content out of it, but I only got like halfway through because I just didn't think about it. But he did talk about obviously addressing the offense, specifically trying to replace some of the production out of guys like, Jock Peterson, Randall Grichuk. And he also did obviously bring up Walker a little bit, but it was more of just talking about some of the DH guys. If they can, platoon the DH, go to a full regular, just one DH. And then also a little bit of bolstering the back end of the bullpen. The Rule 5 draft did also come and go. Nobody was selected from the Dbacks, and the Dbacks didn't select anybody. Mike Hazen, I believe, did have a quote basically saying, like, with the window that they're in, that didn't really seem like they had a spot for a guy that they would, have to keep up here the entire year or return to their original team. And there was a quote that I did get from the MLB article talking about the D-backs kind of standing pat at the winter meetings. It said, "We really didn't get much done, but there's been progress made in some areas." Hazen then went on to say, "So we'll see what happens. Wasn't really expecting anything to happen here. We'll carry all these conversations forward. I feel like we have a little firmer understanding on some potential moves that we can make. It's not anything happening right now, but I do feel like things have progressed a little bit in terms of specificity. There we go. Hey, it's 9:30 on a Friday. Give me a little bit of a break of conversations." So kind of, the mixture of not really doing much, but Hazen at least laying down the groundwork, a little bit of what we're going to be expecting from the front office coming in, the end of 2024, going into 2025 as we get a little bit closer to spring training. Had me want to ask you gentlemen, and also anybody in the chat, shout out Corbin Barrels, and Gabe in the chat. Obviously, Gabe, always in the chat. So if you guys have any questions that we can't answer live, we'll try to get to you in there. But Corbin, always appreciate to see you in here. But the question I had for everybody was, how surprised and or disappointed were you in the Diamondbacks' lack of moves during this year's winter meetings? Gabe, I want to start with you like usual.
So I wasn't surprised, mostly just because of the narrative, the narrative shift that this team had as soon as the season ended. Everything was, we are cutting payroll, we aren't doing this, we aren't doing that, we're going to focus on re-signing Walker. So I wasn't surprised, but I was disappointed, mostly because it seems like all the teams that had an advantage over them, especially come playoff time, all these teams have made moves. Like the only one who really hasn't has been the Padres. But we know at some point they're gonna make a big splash. But I mean, the Giants did something, the Dodgers, the Mets. Like we've had a lot of teams, that were above the D-backs to get that playoff spot. They made their moves. I mean, most of them aren't even set anyways. Like they make these big splashes, and they're not even done. And meanwhile, the D-backs are just kind of like, yeah, I'm asleep. Like I don't feel like it right now. Like, what are we waiting for? I know Brandon in a group chat mentioned like it's still early. I'm like, it's still early, but it gets late really quickly sometimes. Like we've taken off so many guys off the board at this point where, we talked about Devin Williams being a potential uh, candidate for the D-backs. Like there's a few guys that we've been looking towards to maybe add to this team, and then a lot of them are just coming off the boards. Like there's still Yandy Diaz, there's still Pete Fairbanks, there's still a couple guys I think could make this team a lot better, but they got to get this done. They got to get these guys into training, working with the coaches, because we saw with Jordan Montgomery when you don't have these guys ready to go at the start of the season, it's just recipe for disaster. And it's not just pitchers, even hitters as well. I don't know if you guys remember when Harper and Machado signed their contracts the same year. They both waited until February to get their contracts done. They didn't join the team in February. Both of them really, really struggled. Like baseball is all about you know, it's all about having, the routine and everything, and they just didn't have that routine, so they really struggle, and I just don't want to, let's say they do trade for Cody Bellinger, I don't want him to come mid-February and see him struggle because he just didn't have his reps.
Yeah, so you make a great point with a lot of the other teams. I know the Giants were out of the contention a little bit earlier, but they're still always in the divisional rival, making some moves and looking like, obviously being in the mix for Corbin Burns, so they're going to be even stronger. I know the Padres were potentially talking about shedding some of their payroll, some of their star players. Luis Arias, who I'm sorry, is better than Ketel Marte. Sorry, who said that? Who said that on this podcast? Who was it? Well, no, it wasn't mean. It wasn't
First
mean
of all,
Gabe.
you weren't here, so you are not allowed to hold this over me. Only Gabe can hold this over me because this was our podcast.
I know. I just want to miss it. I was gonna bring that up whenever I get the chance, but
yeah,
you do make some good points, Gabe. But some of the guys that we've talked about are off the board now. Obviously today, Devin Williams being traded to the Yankees, Kyle Tucker being traded from the Astros to the Cubs. So the NL. Thank goodness Devin Williams doesn't go to the Dodgers like some reports said, but the NL does again get a little bit stronger, at least for this year, because Kyle Tucker is probably going to go into free agency and not sign an extension. But Brandon, kind of passing it on to you. What are some of your thoughts? And were you surprised or disappointed by the D-backs' lack of moves going into this winter meetings, and obviously to start free agency?
So kind of like Gabe said, like we knew going into this, they were not going to increase the payroll. They were probably going to cut, like either stay where they were at by replacing other contracts with other contracts that were coming off the books, or they were just going to reduce it altogether. So I wasn't expecting anything. I wasn't surprised that they didn't make a move. I was still disappointed because you see teams like the Mets, like the Dodgers, like the Cubs, like the Reds, like these teams that are trying. It really looks like this team is not being very aggressive right now. I know Gabe's worried because we haven't done anything, but for me, like he said, Yandy Diaz is still out there. Fairbanks is out there. Belly's still out there. Walker's still technically out. Until a lot of those guys start being signed, I'm not going to press the panic button. Now, if we get about a month from now, so like the middle of January, and those guys are signed, and we haven't done any major signings, then that's when I'll be a little worried. But as long as a lot of these guys are still out there, also Jock has not signed, and it feels like Jock's been linked to like 15 teams. Yeah, as long as some of these guys are still out there technically, like Walker, who I think it was Tuesday, it almost felt certain that he was signing with the Yankees. Like it almost, because they were like John Heyman, Ken, like they're all like, yeah, it's probably about a 3-year, $63 million. which I was still on the boat that 4 years, 100. And if he would have signed for 3 years, 63, I'm like, we couldn't offer that. Like, is it more of he felt disrespected because they did the qualifying offer? Like, he won't sign regardless. I really hope that's not the case. So, yeah, like, I was disappointed because I wanted them to do something. But again, there are other big time teams out there that really haven't done anything. So I'm not worried on it just yet, but I'm definitely more leaning to how Gabe feels, how like if we don't do something soon, we're gonna be left with scraps.
Yes, I think it's definitely one of those where, like you said, even in the group chat, it was a long off season. And usually I believe even last year or in this MLB article where I got the Mike Hazen quote, it did mention that last winter meetings, the D-backs didn't do anything. And then a day or two after, they did sign Eduardo Rodriguez to that contract. So it's obviously we're a few more days past the winter meetings than I believe when that happened, but it's still hopefully that we do in the next week, at least a week or two, at least, hopefully, like you said, not more than a month. Start to see some of the moves. And I kind of like what Corbin Barrel said in the chat here. He's surprised. If you're not going to add and push chips in, then trade Gallon and get something out of him. We aren't going to extend him. So add useful pieces or get something out of him. Don't stand pat. And especially seeing kind of what the
did.
Yeah, so do what the Astros did with Kyle Tucker. Do like especially seeing like the contracts like Max Fried got his 8-year $214 million, because that I believe happened after our last pod, and we were talking about the possibility of the D-backs actually keeping Gallon, with seeing like Montas and Severino get their deals. Now with Max Fried, a 31-year-old pitcher, again he's still really good, but he is a little bit older than Gallon. Getting that kind of money, like that average annual average value, I wouldn't be surprised if the D-backs just genuinely don't even like try. Like they're probably out of the sweepstakes early, with Gallon being a Boris client. And like the Red Sox gave up a lot for Crochet, so we might not get a Crochet kind of return because he did have 2 years of control left. But it's still one of those where I hate to say it, I love Gallon. Like I still want us to rock with him this entire season, but who knows if I believe one of the discords I was in, they even brought up like if we're just a few games out of contention, like 4 or 5 games back or something like that come the trade deadline, it might be one of those where you got to look in the mirror and decide like, hey, can we get something rather than nothing? Do we want to be like I believe, what was it, the A's or the Rockies, when they didn't trade Trevor Story and they just let him walk for nothing when they could have at least gotten something from him? But it is one of those. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on what Corbin said in the
I mean,
section.
in my opinion, I think they should just keep Gallon because just depending on how things obviously work out, but I don't think this team competes without him. And like you said, it come the end of July, early August, like around the trade deadline, if this team is a few games out, then yeah, maybe at that point you decide like, all right, like what do we need to do? Like, is this team going to actually be competing, or are they just in a rough spot? Because if you remember correctly, the Mets were like 6 games out of a wild card spot come the deadline, and the D-backs just added Puck, and they were just like, all right, well, we're done now. And the Mets were able to catch up with the additions that they made to their bullpen, and maybe it could work out in D-backs' favor, but I do think as of right now, they should just hold on to Gallon. I don't think he's somebody that this team should look to trade just yet, unless it's just a for sure thing that they're not going to make the playoffs. But yeah, I do think we should just keep him. Just whatever he walks, he walks. I don't want this to turn into another Goldie situation where we're trading away, one of our great guys, one of our best players of all time, just for scraps, just for the Carson Kellys of the world, or like the Luke Weavers. I know he's really good with the Yankees now, but
took him 4 years.
Yeah, not even 4 years. 5, 6 seasons or whatever the hell it's been now. I don't want it to end up in that situation. Like if they're going to trade a Gallon, get major league ready guys, address their needs at first base, at third base. Like we don't know what this team is going to do with guys like Lawler. Like we have a few guys in the minor leagues who seemingly might be ready to go, but this team is just holding back on them. So, we, like I've mentioned, like in some other comments before, like at this point, the National League is in a nuclear arms race, and the D-backs are trying to fight with sticks and stones. Like, we can't have that happen. Like this, you can't expect to be able to compete with these teams. Like maybe in the playoffs, obviously, everything's different once the playoffs start, but you got to get there first. And this team didn't do that last year, and the way it's looking now, I mean, I know they won 89 games with uh, bubblegum and bubblegum and rosin worth of pitchers last year. Like, hopefully, having Gallon back, I do believe in this rotation. I think it's going to be a lot better next year. But we need to be able to add some guys, especially stabilizing that defense and being able to get a few more hitters on the board, maybe some more on base guys. Like, there's a lot of needs that this team has right now because we lost 4 for major players in this offseason. We got to replace them, and we can't just sit idly by and twiddle our thumbs until something comes our way like that.
So,
No,
Brandon, do you have something to say?
No, Red Sox Nation. No, I was going to give you props.
That's only for in hell.
Jesus, no. I think this team needs to with Gallon, they need to decide: do they want to do a restart with a rebuild? Because if they do, then yes, trade Gallon now, get 1 or 2 major league ready players and see if that will improve the team. But if you feel like you can still compete, then you need to keep Gallon. And I don't even if they're out of it at the trade deadline, I still think that they should keep him because you don't know what happens the last 2 months of the season. Like Gabe brought up, the Mets were 6 games out of the wild card. They made the NLCS. So you don't want to press the reset button just yet. I think it just depends on what this team does the next 6 weeks. What does this roster look like February 1st for me? Do we have we figured out first base? Have we figured out DH? Because for me, those are the 2 holes that we got to make sure to either bring back because or just maybe focus on at least one of them for production's sake. But for me, it's 6 weeks. February, what does this roster look like February 1st? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a little bit sweatier. They're going to make us all a little bit more nervous as we get along. And there was at least obviously no deals actually done. It wasn't just like the D-backs were the only ones calling around, seeing what teams, what players they were interested. There were other teams actually calling the D-backs to see, not just on pitchers either. I know the starting pitching market and the Diamondbacks starting pitchers and all that have been somewhat of a hot topic since the offseason started. But there was actually a report, I believe I saw on MLB Trade Rumors, that the I'm going to do it every time, the LA Angels called around and asked on Eugenio Suarez and a few other third basemen as well, as they're trying to bring on a more full-time third base option. And it was a little interesting because I know obviously we were talking about, especially when the season ended and all that, how this was a no-brainer to use the team option, bring him back. Like, we didn't have a third base option because we'll get to him probably in a little bit on this question as well. I don't want to go too deep into it, but Jordan Lawler seems like he's in positional hell right now. They don't have a clear spot for him, but there was a trade proposal brought on by John Boy Media's and potential MVP for Blitz Battle 5, Dalton Feely. He was on Twitter. He put out this trade proposal saying the Cubs need a third baseman, D-backs need a first baseman. Cubs get Eugenio Suarez 1 year, $115 million on his deal. D-backs get Cody Bellinger with his 1 year, $27.5 million for this year, and his 2026 player option of $25 million. Went on to say who would win this trade, which side would need more. And even some of the comments and all that were saying okay, well, who would you get to play third base? And like I said, Jordan Lawler doesn't really have a position open for him right now. Like Perdomo, after how he played really well last year, obviously outside of the month that he missed from his knee injury, he's still really solid. He's like that emotional leader on the field, like we've seen him all the time with J-Mart. So he's probably not going to go anywhere. Cattell's still going to be at second base for I feel like at least the next few years until they try to hopefully transition him into a DH role. So maybe trading Gino away. Well, maybe not the best plan. All that, again, I kind of agree with Red Sox Nation on the no on that. I'm not on a yes. I'm kind of in the middle ground. But it does open up a possibility for Jordan Lawler to get some actual more major league playing time, and kind of, maybe make up for whatever might have happened in 2023 when he clearly was on the bad side of Torey Lovullo and the coaching staff, probably missed a bunt sign or something. But it had me kind of want to ask you guys, and obviously anybody in the chat, or even again listening, if you're on YouTube after the show, if you're listening on Spotify, and you want to like respond as well, again, link for the Discord. It's free. You don't have to pay any money for it. But what are your thoughts on Dalton's proposed trade between the Northsiders and the Snakes? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Obviously, Red Sox Nation hates it.
I think for me, it would depend on the person, but in this case, what did he suggest? It was
basically Gino for
Bellinger. Gino. There you go. Yeah. Like a 1-for-1 trade, right?
Okay.
No, I wouldn't, just because we have a need at first base, and if we give up Gino, then we have a need at third base because we don't have any third basemen. We don't have Kevin Newman anymore, so we don't have any guys who can cover third base on the major league roster, I should say, because we do have Jordan Lawler. We can slide over Perdomo. We can put Lawler at short, but this organization has been so, I don't even know what word would be appropriate, like cautious. Yeah. With Lawler, they've been just kind of hiding him. I know he's had injuries, but even without the injuries, his team just kind of just stashes him away. Doesn't do anything with them. Like this last off season, like in February, when everyone was asking Lovullo, like, hey, so like, is there going to be any sort of real play for the shortstop position? And he just straight up was just like, nope, Perdomo has the position. So doesn't seem like they're wanting to even give Lawler a shot. I would hope so. Maybe, if Lawler comes into spring, he looks good, he's healthy, maybe I can see that trade happening. I might be more optimistic about it. Lawler played mostly third and short in the Dominican League, so he didn't really get any reps at first. So I personally wouldn't, at least with Gino, just because we're getting rid of one guy just to get another guy that we still need anyway. So, and plus the contract, $25 million, Gino's $15 million. It's not worth it for me. I think the Cubs might have to throw in something else. I know they have a couple really nice relievers over there, so maybe they throw one of those guys in or something. But no, like I understand where Dalton's coming from. But for me, I just think, like, unless this organization is serious about Lawler and about putting him third base, I don't see this happening.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those where I think we're probably in the same boat. That, like, again, I like Bellinger, but you do make a great point. Is we would fill one hole. It's like, it's like you're in a rowboat. You got two holes. You can plug one with both hands, but if you try to plug the other one with both hands, you're still gonna have another hole to try to fill. So, it's definitely a, like, I wouldn't say a solves every issue. It seems fun, but you also bring up a good point. A little more money on Bellinger's side, almost double of what Gino's costing. And it's not like it's a club option for 26. It's a player option. So he's probably going to pick that up anyway, especially he gets, again, another 26 million. But Brandon, what are your, kind of same thing to you. Are you on the same page as, Gabe and Red Sox Nation in the chat, who's saying it really pisses me off that they would even consider this? Are you on the same boat as them, or do you kind of like what Dalton's cooking in the lab over there?
If Chicago wants to do straight 1-for-1, yes, in an instant. I don't think they would. They would want something more from us. I think they'll want at least another, because there's no way they'll do straight 1-for-1. I don't think that they would. Now, if they do, there's a couple of options for third base. Like we brought up, Jordan Lawler. If they don't want to do Jordan Lawler, there are some affordable free agents for potential third base. You got former D-back Brandon Drury. Has played third base in his career. Last year he made about 8.5. Not a bad idea. Another option, Ha-Seong Kim is also a free agent, a very good defensive infielder. Now, last year, offensively, was not very good at all. So that also potentially could be an option.
Alex Bregman. Bring Alex Bregman home.
I mean, yeah, I don't I'm not sure about that one. And just to piss off Cruz, Kike Hernandez, by the way. Kike Hernandez could also be he could be like a Kevin Newman. He is a super utility. He can play all the outfield. He can play second, short, and third base. So there are options out there. If they say they do make this trade, and now we have a hole at third base, there are options out there that I think is within this team's range in terms of money. Now, this next one I'm going to suggest, it doesn't make sense for this team because they value defense, but he does have power, and that's Patrick Wisdom. So that, again,
maybe even a potential DH.
Also, change of scenery might help him out. Yoan Moncada. So there are options I think there are options out there if they make this trade, and now we have a hole at third base, and they don't want to go with Jordan Lawler just yet. There are cheap-ish options out there. Originally, I was thinking Jorge Polanco, but he's never played third base. So I don't like that one. He's really only played second, and we know second base is all taken care of. So if the Cubs are willing to do it, straight 1-for-1, and if not, throw in Slade Ciccone.
But do you think any of the guys that you mentioned are better than Gino? Because I think Gino,
not for
he's the
it's gonna be tough
option.
to replicate his power.
Yeah, like with the power, like I know he struggled for the first couple of months of the season, but his turnaround, like, it happened in Seattle as well. He does have a turnaround.
I think those options are good for a platoon with Jordan Lawler. I think those are good options for that. But there's no one out there that can it just feels weird to say, because before June 1st last year, everyone was like, this Gino trade is awful. This is not working out. And then, he just absolutely took off.
I mean, maybe the only option would be someone like Nolan Arenado, but I believe his contract is still for like a couple more years, and like 5 more years or something like that. Like, it's not a short contract. It's
also,
not like we're getting him for a couple years.
The Dbacks are not on his list of teams for his no trade clause.
Yeah, his contract is up after he would be so he would be a free agent in 2028. So you would get him for 25, 26, and 27, and he's making about, let's see, like 21 and 25. Yeah, 21 million this year, 16 and 26, and 15 and 27.
So he's a good option, but it's something that the D-backs would have to ask themselves. It's like, do you want Arenado there for those last couple of years? I mean, his production has gone down. He's still a great defender. Or would you rather give Lawler a shot? Like, it's, where's Lawler going to fit in all this? Like, he's only getting older. Like, he's still stuck in AAA. And we still have Tommy Troy, who's a great player as well. A lot of power. We just have a lot of these young guys who are kind of just stuck right now. And this team has to figure out what to do with them. Like, we've talked about it before. Like, they can't be so precious with these prospects, because at the end of the day, they are still prospects. They are lottery tickets. They're not for sure. And if this team can get a for sure guy, a guy with a proven track record who you can have under control for a couple of years, like, you might just have to bite the bullet and get, move on from some of these guys.
There was muted. And you make a great point with the, not like you can't hug all prospects. Like a lot of these prospects, like you can't hold on to. I think Jordan Lawler's still one of those, like you even mentioned in the group chat, Gabe. Like if they did let him go, there's, whether with our luck or just because he's still very talented and he's still pretty young, he would probably blossom on another team and make us, eat our words. Maybe not like I think he'd probably be better than what Dansby Swanson was in that trade, as much as we know that
he's a 5-tool player. He's a 5-tool player. Dansby Swanson shouldn't have been number 1. It should have been Bregman.
Yeah, that was definitely, looking back on that draft. Maybe we all got a little bit too hyped up on the Vanderbilt best player on the team, because I think that was the year they won the College World Series. And hey, don't get me wrong, I was excited about it when we got him, but then that excitement lasted maybe 6 months before they fucking traded him away. But you do bring up some good names. Brandon Drury's still a little iffy, because just looking at like his year last year, he had a -2 B WAR in 325 at bats. I believe he was hurt for a little bit, but he had a 169 batting average, 4 home runs, only 55 hits, 28 runs. So I'd be a little skeptical of him. Obviously, I know you said like it'd be more of like a platoon with him and Lawler. Hassan Kim, you could probably talk me into if they did go this route. Obviously, like Gabe said, it's going to be a major downgrade from what Eugenio Suarez is, putting up his 30 home runs, 100 RBI season. But maybe we get more of kind of like that 2023 D-backs chaos ball. So like, you could probably talk me into that. Yohan Moncada, the switch hitter, like, again, I know he wasn't the big prospect that he turned out, or that the White Sox were hoping to be when they traded, I believe it was Chris
Change of
Sale for him.
scenery with a lot of guys. Like
Yeah.
like you see it all the time. They sign with a new team on like a prove it deal, and then all of a sudden, different coaching or just getting away from whatever the mess of
Getting away from the worst team in literally baseball history. Like, I don't think nobody was looking good on there. And then, even like Corbin Barrel says in the chat, like there's maybe if they do end up trading away Lawler, or trading away Alec Thomas, I know they talked about like trying to move Jordan Lawler maybe into a center field role. Maybe they do that. Maybe that's what they're holding on to, but definitely some question marks being answered, while a few more question marks would pop up if that trade proposal from Dalton went through. But it's still kind of it kind of sucks that we're just in this potential like hypothetical trade thing, and it's like I just want to see some things get done, especially Gabe mentioned it earlier, seeing the Brewers return on Devin Williams. It's like, yeah, I mean, like we could have done that. We probably could have gone a trade like that, like he's saying, don't prospect hug. Like there was a good chance we could have gotten him, and that solves Hazen's issue with getting the back end of the bullpen. And then I believe even Brandon, you mentioned in our group chat about Walker probably being the reason why a lot of these moves are being held up, is because they're waiting to see his decision before they probably try to know exactly what kind of money they have left to spend before they maybe they do try to go get Tanner Scott off the free agent market. Maybe they do try to work in another kind of AJ Puck-esque kind of trade where they go get a reliever that's maybe not as like highly touted, maybe not like one of those more well-known names, but has some pretty good numbers when you actually do a little bit of a deeper dive into it. So it's definitely a, kind of like we've said all offseason, kind of a wait and see. I'm just getting a little bit tired of the waiting, and it's driving me a little bit crazy. But there was actually some other, obviously I know I talked about the Rule 5 draft at the winter meetings. That wasn't the only draft related news, as they did hold the MLB draft lottery down there at the winter meetings. At least I believe it was in the winter meetings. I think they do all in the same thing, but the Dbacks got shafted before they even drafted. Not really, but I just thought it was a fun title. I wanted to keep it in there. The Dbacks went into the draft lottery with the lowest odds to land the number 1 pick. They had a 0.3% chance, and they were the first name picked out of the barrel. Their pick number 18. Obviously, the other 12 teams behind them were all 12 playoff teams. So they got pick number 18, and the draft order the rest of the way followed. So the Washington Nationals wound up with number 1. LA Angels got 2, Mariners 3, Rockies 4, Cardinals got 5. Then you have behind them Pirates, Marlins, Blue Jays, Reds, White Sox, and Athletics. So poor White Sox. This is why they did the draft lottery, so you can't have teams tank. I know the White Sox might have not been tanking, but they were tanking. Let's look at the roster they put together. Let's be real, okay? They were tanking, and this is what you get for tanking multiple years in a row. You get rewarded with them and the A's literally had a 0% chance of getting the first pick. They were not allowed to get the first pick at all. But then after the White Sox and A's, you have the Rangers, Giants, Rays, Red Sox, Twins, the Cubs, who we just talked about for potential trades, and then the Diamondbacks themselves. So the question I kind of had for you guys, obviously, and everybody in chat as well, is were there any surprises with how the MLB draft order played out? And do you see the Diamondbacks going with the usual draft the best player available strategy, or do you think they try to focus on going after somebody like the best player at a specific position? I know in the last few years it's been seemingly very shortstop and like outfield heavy, like Slade Caldwell, Jordan Lawler, Drew Jones, some of these, positions that are getting a little bit clogged up. Do you think that they're going to go with, again, the best player on the board, or do you think maybe they try to address like a third baseman? Maybe they draft another first baseman. Maybe they draft like another like reliever type guy out of college, like maybe a Landon Sims, like when they got him. Like what's your opinion? Where do you think the obviously the D-backs go, and obviously any surprises. So, Gabe, I'm going to start with you like usual.
I would assume they would go for the best guy available because a lot of these guys especially pitchers. I think pitchers are more finicky, especially when in the later rounds, in the not the later rounds, but the later picks. If you're able to get a pitcher like in a first or second pick, usually those guys do end up working out, like a Gary Cole, like a Strasburg. Um, but once you start getting them later on, sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. And same with all the other positions. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But I think the D-backs probably would just get whoever's the best player available. Probably a shortstop because shortstops are a lot more movable. Like the guys you brought up, Slade, Tommy Troy, Jordan Lawler. These guys are not going to be playing shortstop anytime soon. I think they're all probably going to end up moving somewhere around the field, especially like Lawler. Lawler's 6'4", I believe, so he can fit. He can fit around anywhere on the diamond. But with pitchers, especially when you're getting pitchers, doesn't matter if they're coming from college or high school or whatever. They come with a lot of issues, especially if they throw hard. Like you're gonna have to be prepared for the guy to have Tommy John, and that he won't be up. Like unless maybe he's a Skeens, but again, I believe Skeens was a #1 draft pick, right, last year.
Yeah, Skeens was last year.
So like unless there's a guy like that, I think they wouldn't go for him. But yeah, it's the draft and the MLB draft. Unfortunately, it's not like basketball or football where as soon as they draft them, they're up and their names. It's going to be a wait and see type of game until 3-4 years from now. We might see one of these guys. Jordan Lawler was taken 2021, I believe. But everything changes so much in the draft as well. I remember when the D-backs got the #1 pick and we chose Drew Jones. Like I remember that draft.
That was number
22.
2.
No, yeah,
no,
that's right. Yeah.
Because that was the year with Jackson Holiday.
Jackson, yeah. So the thing was, for the longest time, Jackson and Drew weren't really on the board as top 10 guys for the longest time. The talk was around Elijah Green, and then a couple months right before the draft, suddenly it all came down to Jackson and Drew, and then Elijah. I believe he went 4th or 5th to the Nationals as well, and he's hitting like 240 and double-A ball. Like he's not doing too good. So that's also what I meant about not being too finicky with these draft picks these prospects, because sometimes they're just I wouldn't say they're busts, but they're not what you expected. And if you can give some of these guys away at a certain time while their value is high, you could end up with a really good, whether it's a pitcher or an infielder or whatever, you can end up with a really good quality major leaguer.
Yeah, so especially with the way they have been drafting, it seems like they usually go like high school. And if they're going young high school guys, like Lawler was high school, Jones was high school, I think Caldwell was high school, they're gonna have the few extra years. Like Dylan Cruz, Paul Skeens, those guys were, I believe, either juniors or seniors in college, and they've already had a little bit of extra development. So it makes sense why guys like that are kind of skyrocketing. I believe even one of the guys I mentioned earlier in the show, the new Red Sox, Garrett Crochet, when he was drafted by the White Sox, he was called up and I believe on the major league roster within like 3 months, similar to kind of like how Ben Joyce was with the Angels. And, to your point, he did end up having, I believe, to get Tommy John and miss like his entire second year, which is unfortunate. But, there is, like you said, there is obviously that little bit of a scare with, some of those pitchers and all that. So especially you could be like the Angels, I believe 2 years ago, where they drafted literally all pitchers. Every single one of their pitchers or their picks in the draft were all pitchers. And it's like they were just like, we don't care. We need pitching. Let's just draft. Which is probably not the smartest idea, but I'm kind of on the same boat. I think they're probably going to they're probably going to stick to their normal draft plan. They're probably going to go with the best available player, whether it's a high schooler or maybe there's at the 18th pick, maybe there's a college player that they see that they're like, yeah, we can't really, pass him up and we got to, pull the trigger on him. But same question to you, Brandon. Were you surprised by any of the things in the draft order? Like for me personally, the Nationals getting #1, that's going to be probably a little scary. Like they already got a nice solid young group. Like I mentioned with Dylan Cruz, he's coming up, and then if they get a #1 pick and they get another college guy or something like that, that can really skyrocket to the major league level in a year or two, they could be a team to deal with. But were there any surprises? And then what do you think the D-backs are going to go with whenever they eventually do get to their pick in the draft?
So a couple of other things I just want to piggyback on. Elijah Green last year at single A, got a 208. 206 strikeouts and 414 at bats.
I
That's
really wanted Elijah Green too.
Oh my lord, that is who. Hopefully, 2025 is more fair to him. So Garrett Crochet was technically first drafted in 2017 as a high schooler, but he actually didn't sign. He was drafted again by the White Sox in the 2020 draft. Made his debut like the last 2 weeks of 2020. So it was really 2021, but that's still really, really quick. That is really quick. Now back to your original question with the Nationals. If they make some good signings, like I know before the winter meetings, their name had come up with a destination for Christian Walker. So if they get someone like Christian Walker and all the young guys they have, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, I don't know if we want to count CJ Abrams based on what happened at the end of last year. But like if they make a couple big splashes, they could be a team to deal with maybe in 2020, maybe late 2025, maybe even 2026. And with them getting a first overall pick, again, not a lot of those guys hit because it's not like Gabe said, it's not like the NBA and the NFL, and you see them right away. A lot of these first round picks, you don't see them for 3 or 4 years. So unless you follow the team closely, you're like, who? How did we get this guy? Oh, we drafted him 4 years ago. So, yeah. For the Diamondbacks, just take the best guy. Just for me, I want them to take probably the guy with the most upside, who has probably the most athletic ability, because then you can transition them to a position of need. Like, go ahead and take a shortstop. You literally can throw them anywhere. Can put them in the outfield if we need to. Can put them at third. Can put it at second. Maybe if need be, make him a pitcher. Because I feel right now even if we bring back Christian Walker, we don't know what our first baseman of the future is. This team has never addressed that. Because if you look at the minors, we don't. Who do we have in the minors that's going to be our starting first baseman in like 3 or 4 years? We don't have one. We're like Ivan Melendez, but then his freaking chase rate is just atrocious. So yeah, for me, it's just take a player that can help this team as soon as possible. For me.
Yeah, and like Red Sox Nation is saying, like put Lawler at first, and that's something I've been like screaming from the rooftops as soon as the season ended. Like, try him out at first. Let's see what it is, because he's a 5'2" player. He's 6'4", which I believe is either 3 or 4 inches taller than Walker is as well.
Yep,
I don't see why don't. Yeah, so I don't see why don't they try? Maybe they just want Walker as a more for sure thing. But Walker, at most, he's going to sign for 3 years, or should sign for 3 years. He's getting older, especially with the way he ended last season. His chase rate, like a lot of his numbers and production is going down, just because of his age as well. So I would rather have Lawler there. Like he's kind of a man without a home right now. Like he's a great player. I have a lot of belief in him, and I think just try him out at first during spring training, see how good he is. Like when he came up last season, not this season, but last season when he came up with the team, like he showed he has a great arm. He's a good defender. He had, I believe, like 11 or 12 opportunities, I believe they call them, or plays. He completed all of them, had no errors. Nobody reached base as long as Jordan Lawler was playing shortstop. Like that's how good he was. There's a couple plays I think during the Cubs series that were very hard. He was like in the shallow outfield. He was able to make the grab and then just throw the guy out at first. Like he's a great player, and I do think he belongs in the major league roster this year. And if we can't sign Walker, try him out at first. Like, what can you lose?
Honestly, yes. It's
Personally,
you gotta find some place for him.
I would rather them put so say they don't trade Gino, put Gino at first and put Lawler at third. For me personally, that's what I would rather see. Because I feel like his arm would be wasted at first base. It's like when the Dodgers put Mookie at second and short. I'm like, his outfield arm is being wasted. Like he's more valuable to the team in the outfield. Just
Or
like
like a throwback here when the Yankees put Alfonso Soriano at second base.
Yeah,
You got a cannon of an arm making one of the shortest throws in the diamond.
So, but I just want Lalo to play. Like I want him to get consistent at bats, not this. Oh, he's
Same.
here.
Same. I need it.
I want him to get consistent at bats. I want him to be starting every day, maybe one game off the week, not playing once a week, because then he can't develop at the major league level. These guys have to play consistently. They have to play every day so that they can really learn this game at the major league level. If they don't want him to do that, then don't have him on the major league roster.
Yeah, there's only so much more development that they can really get out of him in AAA. So you can't really hide him down there for much longer before you kind of like are wasting some of his time. But before we get on to some of the other like smaller related D-backs news, want to shout out obviously again everybody in the live, whether it's on YouTube or Twitter. My boy Nick, appreciate you stopping by as always. MVP, and obviously major shout outs to Red Sox Nation, Corbin Barrels, and then even Oscar, who's trying to be a little bit of a troll. Maybe it's a reverse troll and trying to jinx it, but his Yankees 2025 World Series champs. No, sir, I'm good, thank you. But again, appreciate all you as always stopping by. And again, like Corbin Barrels says, hit the like. Again, it costs you nothing. It really does help us out. Like it does push in the algorithm. Like even on like one of the YouTubes when I logged in or when I opened up on the app when I restarted my phone before and I wasn't logged in, I did see it in the middle of the season. So the algorithm definitely does see it. So definitely helps us out. But getting back into, like I was talking about, some D-backs somewhat related news. One of the things we that kind of happened that we didn't talk about last time, the D-backs ballpark pass is back for the 2025 season. So for $299, you can get a ticket to every single one of the Diamondbacks home games. It's not like the season ticket where it guarantees you obviously any of the giveaways or anything like that, but it does guarantee you get into the ballpark. So like, I don't know if you guys have the quick math. I think they did it last year. That's like $3, maybe like it's like less than $4 per ticket for every single one of the D-backs home games. And again, that's 81 games. So there's really not many other better deals out there. I don't know many teams that are doing that.
It pays for itself really, really quickly.
It really does. Imagine all the money, especially one of the things that sucks is, now that they took away some of the back stadium parking to where like there was the kind of open lots and they are doing construction and putting up more parking garages. The main parking garage of Jefferson was, even for the series where you're like, brother, this team, like for the game against like the A's or if the White Sox are in town, it's still $30. Like, oh my God, why is parking $30? You know what? $4 on your ticket, maybe it makes it a little bit easier to swallow, get your ass down in Chase Field, put some more money in Kendrick's pocket so we can get some more baseball cards.
The
D-backs.
I believe maybe they changed it this year, but as far as since I've done it, it's $12 to add a ticket to it. So if you have it and you want to invite friends, it's $12 up to 4 people, I believe.
That's actually really good news. That's actually, it makes that deal even better. So again, make sure you get on that. I don't think they sold out of it last year, but it's still one of those where you don't want to miss out. So like Corbin Barrel says, someone tell Red Sox Nation, need that for Christmas. Hey, don't shoot the messenger, but that's a nice stocking stuffer right there. But again, somewhat related D-backs news, old friend. I'm going to say friend because I don't really have anything against him. Old friend Carson Kelly signed this is actually pretty fresh news.
I have something against them.
I mean, I have against him because it was in the Goldie trade, but it's not like Luke Weaver at least. But Carson Kelly did sign a 2-year, $11.5 million deal with the Chicago Cubs. So the Cubs are just a hot topic here on tonight's show. They're going to be probably, I assume he's going to be a backup catcher for them, is what Passan's tweet was saying. Noodle Arm Kelly, that's right, Corbin Barrels, Noodle Arm Kelly, who, hey, he could destroy some lefties, but oh boy, he was like Nick Ahmed.
I guess I can say thank you to Carson Kelly, because if he didn't get hurt in 2023,
we wouldn't have Gabby.
So I'm going to say, okay, you took Goldie from me, but you also helped us see what we have in Gabby. So there, it balances out.
Exactly. And then the D-backs did also use some more of their, I believe, international signing money. They dipped into the Taiwanese market where they got Yu Min Lin before, and they signed. I'm gonna probably butcher this name, so I apologize. I haven't actually listened to how it's pronounced. I'm just going off of reading it. Huang Chung Sang. Hopefully, I didn't butcher
We're
that.
so sorry.
Again, if I did butcher that, I apologize. I was trying my best here. I'll look it up on Google to see how exactly you say it. But he's a 19-year-old right-handed pitcher out of Taiwan. Put 500K for it. So, it's kind of the same with what Gabe was talking about with like the draft is probably going to not see him really do much, at least on the major league level for a few years. Wang Chung tonight. I love it, Corbin. But we're probably not going to see him do anything really much on the major league roster for a few years. But hey, you know what? Yu Min Lin is progressing pretty well. He's got some pretty good stuff and pretty hype behind him. I believe he was also on the same team with Yu Min Lin when they won I'm forgetting what the name of the tournament is over there, but they beat, I believe, Japan. USA came in 3 for whatever it was. But that's at least exciting. It's nice to see. It seems like we're trying to dominate the Taiwan market over there. And then the last thing I had on here for some other D-backs related news is the D-backs did solidify their 2025 coaching staff. We kind of talked about it a bunch here, so this will kind of be a quick rundown. Jeff Bannister, Dave McKay, Joe Mather, and Damian Easley are all returning to their same roles that they were on last year, so nothing new. Brian Kaplan, we talked about him. He's a new pitching coach. We also talked about Wellington Cepeda and Sean Larkin. Cepeda is going to be the new bullpen coach. Sean Larkin going to be the new third base coach. So again, if you want some more deep dive, kind of some of our thoughts about them, I believe that was some of our episodes like 2 or 3 episodes ago, maybe even a little further. But some of the new names is Travis Denker. He's going to be the assistant hitting coach. He spent 6 years as the D-backs hitting coach in a few different minor league levels, I believe from single A all the way to triple A. Then they also got Owen Du, which there's just so many memes if the D-backs make it to the playoffs and they go 0-2 or they're up on somebody, you can go Owen Du, no 0-2. I'm sorry, had to.
You could do that for like every series if they lose the first 2 games of the series.
So maybe we got some prime meme potential for thumbnails, but he's going to be the assistant pitching coach. He spent the previous 8 seasons as a pitching coach for the Guardians minor league teams. And the Guardians, I feel like, have done a pretty decent job of getting some solid starting pitchers. Obviously, like Tanner Bybee, I believe Shane Bieber when they brought him up. So that's going to be pretty exciting. And then the D-backs did mention on their tweet about this. Rick Short transitioned from a minor league field coordinator after serving as a major league assistant hitting coach and minor league assistant hitting coordinator from 21 to 24. So the rest of the coaching staff is solidified. Again, most of these guys we don't really know, but the question I was going to kind of have, at least for that part, was which one of the guys named is going to get the most flack from the fan base online whenever the D-backs go through a rough patch. Because I know last year, obviously, Torrey is going to be the one that they, throw out there first. But I know Jeff Mather, or Joe Mather, we talked about him for a little bit on like, hey, if the D-backs can't hit, like, is there a reason maybe we need to get rid of him? But word vomit over. What are some of your guys' thoughts on obviously the ballpark pass, Carson Kelly getting a nice little deal, the D-backs dipping into the Taiwan market, and then also solidifying their coaching staff? So, Gabe, floor is yours. 5 minutes if you want, 3 minutes, whatever you want, because there's a lot to cover there.
Yeah, I guess for the ballpark pass, it is the best deal in sports all around, not just baseball. Like I said, I believe it's around $12 to add somebody else. So if you have a friend, family member, you want to add them, you got a date, you can pay $12 and be like, yeah, I spent, $25, $30 on this ticket. So, you can get some street cred with that. Carson Kelly, kind of an overpay. Huang Chung-xiang, I believe. I don't know how to say that. I mean, it's better than that Chinese character in what's it called, Harry Potter, named Ching Chong, whatever the hell her name was.
Oh, the dude, I don't even know. J.K. Rowling,
just the most racist name.
Wild.
If she added a Mexican, they'd probably call him like Tacos Menudo or something. And then the coaching staff, I believe probably the one who's going to get the most flack is probably going to be the bullpen coach just because of how volatile bullpens are. No matter what, no matter where you are, the bullpen is always going to be the hardest, I guess, position, I guess, in all the sport. Like they are the ones who are there at the end, who are going to be, giving up games or saving games. So he's probably going to be the one who's under the most scrutiny, especially after giving up. Oh my god, I forgot his name. The
Fetters.
yeah, Fetters. So I believe he's probably in the most scrutiny. I mean, Lavello as well. I think he's also going to be under a lot of scrutiny, especially after missing the playoffs last year. I mean, fans call for his head no matter what. So if they start off bad again, I think, I don't think there's going to be any real moves, but I can see there being a lot more discussion about the trajectory of this team with him involved, or maybe putting Jeff Bannister as the main coach, main manager. Like, I think there's a lot of expectations for this team for this year, and all these guys are probably going to be on a chopping block come August if they're not, competing as well as they should.
Yeah, say you're not wrong. Say however we would pronounce his name, way better than what J.K. Rowling did with Cho Chang. And like on your point, if they made, I saw something online before, if they made an Irish character in that movie, we probably would have called him like Potato Car Bomb, because she is just she is truly a one of a kind human being, and not in a good way, in my opinion. But back to this, you know, like you said, the ballpark pass, one of the best deals in baseball. You can't sign that up. Carson Kelly, I do agree, a little bit of an overpay, especially for like a backup catcher. But I think that's just the way the market's going. We're not going to see like the days where guys like Willie Bloomquist. I remember when he signed as like a backup role, he was getting like 2 years, $1.5 million per year. We're way past some of these backup guys and bench guys getting the single digit millions. So, or at least, on their 2-year deals. So I agree, a little bit of an overpay. And then, yeah, it's always going to be Torey Lovello, but I could definitely see Wellington Cepeda getting a little bit more flack, especially like if maybe Justin Martinez has regression, maybe Puck isn't the same Puck that we got him. I could see people going like, well, why'd we change our bullpen coach if they were doing just fine? But it's one of those where kind of like maybe that's just going to be the term for the offseason, just wait and see. But Brandon, same thing to you. What are your thoughts on, obviously the ballpark pass, Carson Kelly dipping into the Taiwan market, and then them also solidifying their pitching or their just coaching staff in general?
Yeah, ballpark pass. I'm probably gonna get most likely. I wanted to get season tickets, but my work let me down in terms of my bonus, so I can't. And I just, with the ballpark pass, like it's $300. Like, depending on how often you go, you could have that paid for by probably like the middle of May or June. And like you go into every game after that, it's just gravy. It's just bonus. So, yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. Carson Kelly, I don't know if it's going to be a pure backup. I think it might be a platoon, because their current guy, Miguel Amaya, isn't exactly a great catcher. And we know Carson Kelly destroys lefties. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a potential platoon situation, only based because of what that contract is. Like basically $12 million for 2 years. Like, to me, that's more of a no, we see you playing quite a bit. If not, then it's like you both said, it's a massive, massive overpay. And also it's great that they found human land. They're like, let's go back to the well. Let's see what else. Let's see what else in Taiwan that we can get. So that'll be really exciting. Now, in terms of the coaching staff, we all know how much this fan base cannot stand Torey Lovello. So many of them. I don't know if it'll be the first game, first series, first week, first month. He will make a dumbfounded decision, and everyone's gonna be like, fire Torey, and have Jeff. So many people want Jeff Bannister as the manager, which I don't blame them. He's a really good bench coach. He does a really good job when Torey gets tossed. So I think everyone is going to. The first bad move that Torrey makes, they're going to want him fired. So um, I hope, though, people will give Brian Kaplan, the new pitching coach, at least the season before they start really going after him. I'm like, he's new. So he has to instill his philosophy. Hopefully, the entire pitching staff, not just the starters, but the bullpen as well, really buy in to his philosophy. Philosophy when it comes to pitching, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the bullpen coach as well. Like, you can't expect these guys to be clicking on all cylinders in their first season. Also, I have a feeling with our new third base coach, Sean Larkin, he's gonna make a aggressive send, or he's gonna be conservative, and fans are gonna be like, "We picked this guy. He doesn't even know when to send a guy." Like, I can just hear the keyboard warriors.
Was that Kermit the Frog?
Yes.
Patrick Mahomes is in our Patrick Mahomes is in our live.
So, but no, I hope we get some transaction news. Like, I'm done with like this minor league stuff and other players that have been here signings. Like, I want something, or like Walker sign somewhere so that this team can kind of start their off season. Because I don't think they're doing anything until they know what's happening with Walker. So Walker could be holding them hostage, and he might be doing it on purpose because he feels disrespected about the qualifying offer, which is, it might be holding up his contract with the new team, because they're like, okay, so we sign you and we lose a pick, so we can't offer you too much. So I don't know. I would love him back, but again, like I've said numerous times, my expectations is that he's not coming back, and I've accepted that so that I'm not disappointed. I really do think that he's going to the Yankees, though. Like, I think it feels like it's almost set in stone at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that the Yankees are probably going to go after Cody Bellinger. I feel like that's just maybe that's just because they talked about it when he was a free agent before he signed with the Cubs. But I feel like his swing is borderline built for that ballpark. And after losing out on Juan Soto and then pivoting in their fan base being like, yeah, well, Kyle Tucker was better than Juan Soto anyway, so we'll just get him. And then the Cubs getting him.
I mean, he is. If you go and look at based on their averages, it's really close. If you take what they've done and you like base it on an average season, it's very close.
Yeah, Kyle Tucker's a very good hitter. I'm not like trying to take away anything like that. Like, he is still very good, but like, at least when it comes to, and he also is a little bit of a better fielder, so there's that. But I still think that there's like, Kyle Tucker's going to get paid. He's not getting Juan Soto paid.
He's not getting
Juan Soto paid. And he's only a year older than Soto, so he's going to be hitting the free agent market 2 years.
450, maybe 500, maybe. I don't know. Yeah,
I could see it. But I know we talked about a lot here tonight. Obviously, the open up the show with the
Corbin Rose. I love you. He's better than Tucker. He's not better than Soto.
Yeah, at least after last year and his sophomore slump, definitely can't say it. But hey, maybe he'll prove us wrong, make us eat our words, and he'll have another like even better year than what he had in 2023 when he
50-50 season. Let's go.
Hi, dude. I would love that. But obviously, like when we opened the show with the news of the D-backs not doing anything, agreed with Brandon. Would like to see them actually make some moves that we can talk about. Then moving on to Dalton's, hypothetical or potential trade with swapping Eugenio Suarez for Cody Bellinger and what that could look like, what question marks that solves and opens up. And then the D-backs draft getting 18th overall. Any final thoughts on any of the things? Maybe something that you wanted to touch on earlier but didn't get to until now.
I just want to say, like, to quote Monty Williams, I'm not calling you out, I'm calling you up. And that goes for this entire organization. Last year was a failure, and it's from the top down, like whether it's the philosophy, The players not performing as well as they should. A lot of the pitching staff wasn't as good as they should have been. Corbin Carroll was abysmal for the first 2 months. So was Gino. So was Gabby. There's a lot of these guys who, if they would have played, halfway to their level, this team would have made the playoffs easily. They didn't. So whatever the moves are, whatever this team does, Corbin Carroll, Gino, Gabby, Gurriel, I can't even say Jock or Walker yet. So either one of these guys, whatever guys we get, they have to perform at their elite level. Obviously, you can't expect them to hit 300 every part of the season, but they can't have a 150, 100 average again. They can't have a 200 on base anymore. This team is ready to compete, and they've been ready to compete for the past couple of years. They need to get onto a hot start, because if they start off slow again, they might not be able to recover with the way these teams are arming themselves. So they have a lot of work ahead of them. I don't envy Mike Hazen. I know he has a very hard job to do. I would like to keep him here for the foreseeable future. I wouldn't want him to, look at the budgetary constraints that Kendrick is giving him, and then he decides he wants to be with the Red Sox in a couple of years and win a championship with them. I want him to win here. I want the D-backs to win here. So yeah, I think that's about all I have to say.
Yes, if only the D-backs were up for sale and Matt Ishbia could own 2 different Arizona sports teams, but he's looking at a different.
I want him
team
to
in the
own
Twins.
3 Arizona sport teams while we're at it.
Well, yeah, the Coyotes, sadly, sad.
Nope. I'm talking about the Cardinals. I want him to buy the Cardinals.
Yeah. I don't even think that man cares about football, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, say, Brandon, any kind of final thoughts on what we talked about tonight with the winter meetings kind of just having nothing done, the Dalton trade proposal, and then the D-backs draft order and all that? Maybe something that you didn't get to touch on earlier.
This isn't a bad suggestion with Kenley Jansen. I don't hate it as a high leverage guy. Not as the closer anymore, but maybe another high leverage guy. But didn't he sign somewhere? Now that did Kenley Jansen? I thought. No, sorry, I'm not thinking right now.
Thinking of Danny Jansen, I think.
No, I thought Kenley Jansen signed Did he? Or am I might be confusing from last year. I might be confusing myself. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a free agent still.
Sorry. This is awful. I might be confusing him with Chapman. This is awful.
Yeah, one's a shitty person, one's just an older closer.
No. But just make a signing, guys. Would I love it to be Christian Walker or Jock Peterson? Yes. But just something that helps improve this team. Whether it's a bullpen arm, whether it's first base or maybe even third base, just something, maybe a backup catcher. Something. Just because right now I think all we've done is depth.
Yeah, so they haven't really done anything to address the actual major league needs. So, and even with catcher, I know they'll probably still at least give ADC a shot, and it's probably his backup spot to lose. But I wouldn't hate the idea of bringing in somebody, because competition's always good. You always got to have somebody trying to get the best out of you, make sure you're not being complacent, and not like he would be, because he's still a young player. He's still probably trying to prove that he can make this roster. But again, that's what spring training's for. Maybe they bring back Tucker Barnhart and go, hey, buddy, you want to give another shot? I hope not. But, we'll again, like all things, we'll have to wait to see. I just want something, like Brandon said, something for the Major League roster, not the Jeff Brigham kind of signing. Give me an actual, like I believe Corbin Barrow's even talking about maybe like Jeff Hoffman, not like a super back end arm, but at least it's something. Maybe even just go give us Tanner Scott. I wanted him at the trade deadline. Go give us him now. I know he might be a little pricey, but hey, you know what? He might be worth it. But again, in the meantime, or we'll probably have at least something to talk about. Maybe it'll be big news. Maybe it'll be kind of us here trying to figure out something to talk about while the D-backs just continue to hibernate in the winter. But again, appreciate every single one of you guys for stopping by, whether it was in the Twitter chat, even just watching on Twitter, YouTube, or again, if you're listening to us after we're live. Appreciate each and every single one of you guys. Make sure, again, you follow us on Twitter, join the Discord, and check out all of the amazing content over on AZ Snake Pit. And we will see you guys on the next episode of the Dbacks Dispatch.
It's the Dbacks Dispatch. Let's go. Yeah, bring Red Game, Josh on the floor. West Coast vibes, catch us on the air. Home running dogs, diamond gems, we share. Brandon was a stat, sees a man with a plan. Red races down, tells it like it is, man. Gabs on fire, brings the heat every time. Josh on the mix, keep the beat so fine. Ain't got the insights every week's a hit. Tune in, Dbacks Dispatch, this is it. Now we rollin'. Dbacks Dispatch, yeah. Talk to Brandon, Brandon, Gabe, this is Big Catch. Josh on the mix, he make the beats. West Coast vibe, got the G fucking the band. The home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. Dbacks Dispatch, we here to stay. Yeah, catch us every week, we bring the flavor to it. We got the home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. Dbacks Dispatch, we here to stay. Catch us every week, we bring the flavor to it.